We'll see how it's going to go with the sun, because it's kind of coming up now. But I kind of really like sitting in this spot right now, so hope it's not going to be annoying. Hi lovely people, welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be talking about autistic burnout. I've had this video on my list for a while because you are interested in the subject, so without further ado, let's dive in. So today we are going to be discussing 4 main points in this video. What is autistic burnout? What is the difference between autistic burnout and general burnout? Possible causes of autistic burnout? And finally, how to cope with autistic burnout. Alright, so what is autistic burnout? If you are on the autism spectrum, then chances are that at least at some point you have experienced this. Autistic burnout is characterized by extreme physical, mental and emotional fatigue. And usually this is the result of trying to cope or trying to mask certain challenges that come with the autism experience. Just like general burnout, autistic burnout can result in temporary or even longer-term loss of skills and difficulty functioning in day-to-day life and getting through everyday tasks. What are some signs of autistic burnout? First and foremost, there is the overall exhaustion. Your entire being feels tired. Physically, mentally and even emotionally. Everything is going to feel like it's too much for you, which can make it very difficult to get even through the most basic daily tasks. Are we liking this light? Are we hating it? I don't know. The sun is definitely coming through. This seemed like such a good idea to film in the sunlight. Can we ignore this? I don't think I can ignore this actually. Another common feature of autistic burnout is loss of skills. Basic skills like communication, which is already a challenge for a lot of people on the autism spectrum, can take a big hit. Like that. Which makes it difficult to both express yourself as well as interpret, which can make it difficult to both express yourself as well as interpret other people in the right way, making social interactions not only extra draining, but just more difficult in general. Other skills too, like the ability to plan or organize, or even to take care of yourself, can be hugely compromised during autistic burnout. Like we've already talked about in a different video, sensory sensitivity is something that a lot of people on the autism spectrum already deal with. However, during autistic burnout, this can be even more of an issue. Your brain is basically already overloaded, so any extra stimuli can be really hard to handle. And this makes you more sensitive to, for example, sounds, smells, light, or even touch. Masking is a very common trait in autism. I will have a video linked for you in which we discuss this in more detail. It is basically a tactic to try and fit into the more neurotypical society. This is, however, something that usually takes up quite a bit of energy from the individual that's trying to mask, and definitely to keep that up. And that is energy that you just don't have when you are dealing with autistic burnout. This makes it a lot harder or even impossible to mask for people when they are dealing with autistic burnout, and especially to keep that up for any period of time. And finally, there is being emotionally overwhelmed. Something that I personally tend to call emotionally unstable to people that are close to me. And this is basically just difficulty regulating your emotions and just generally feeling emotionally drained. And then also anxiety or depression can actually be a part of this. Right, so let's get into the next part of this video. What are the actual differences between autistic burnout and just general burnout that we all know of? Autistic burnout is, like the name suggests, a form of burnout. But there are definitely some key differences between autistic burnout and general burnout that most people tend to know of. Both autistic burnout and general burnout leads to feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. The differences, however, lie in how it is caused, how often it occurs, and also partially in how to deal with it. Like discussed, autistic burnout is primarily caused by prolonged exposure to social expectations, sensory overload, and the effort of masking autistic traits to try and fit into a neurotypical world. Whereas general burnout is usually a response to prolonged stress from work, personal responsibilities, or just life pressure, like feeling overworked, underappreciated, or just emotionally drained because of a specific role in life, like parenthood, caretaker, or a very demanding job. So in both cases, the issue can be found in a lack of balance and in too much pressure. However, where that balance is needed can be slightly different. A big difference, for example, is while that in both cases of burnout, performance can be hugely affected, general burnout usually doesn't come with the same struggle to perform even the most basic tasks, like is the case with autistic burnouts, like losing the ability to even have a basic conversation. Also, while in general burnout there can absolutely be a heightened sensitivity to sensory stimuli, in autism, heightened sensitivity to stimuli is already there. So increasing that sensory sensitivity during autistic burnout can be even more debilitating. In both cases, what is needed is time to recover and to rest and really find that balance. And then finally, a big difference in these two kinds of burnout is mostly how often it occurs for a single person and how often it basically comes back. General burnout is mostly tied to a prolonged time of stress or pressure at work or in life, whereas autistic burnout is usually caused by the prolonged pressure and stress of living with autism in a world that was set up for neurotypicals. This means that while some accommodations can be made and tools can be given to deal with it, for most autistic individuals there's always going to be this baseline of stress or pressure, which just means that autistic burnout is more likely to come back. And because of that, generally occurs more often for individuals than general burnouts. Recovery from autistic burnouts can take longer than recovering from general burnouts, simply because what has caused the burnout in the first place is more difficult to take away in the case of autistic burnouts. So it's harder to get a rest from what has caused the burnout. Recovery from general burnout is mostly reliant on being able to take rest or reduce or even take away what has caused the burnout in the first place. So taking away those stressors. And in the case of autistic burnout, taking away those stressors is usually a bit more difficult to do because they tend to be more tied to the general environment of the person experiencing this kind of burnout. And even after recovery, there's always going to be the need to manage the sensory and social overload in autism. Alright, we kind of already discussed what actually causes autistic burnout, but let's take a closer look. A lot of autistic individuals are already more sensitive to stress. That in itself can obviously be a problem. But combine that with a lower awareness of that stress actually manifesting itself in your life and you have a fantastic recipe for autistic burnout. So let's take a look at the causes for extra stress for people on the autism spectrum. First of all, chronic social expectations and masking. The constant pressure to fit into a world that was set up for neurotypicals in work situations, social situations, or even school can be truly draining. And especially for women on the autism spectrum, masking can be a huge trigger because women tend to mask more already than men typically do. It's a trait that is more common in women. Then we have sensory overload. So constant exposure to different sensory stimuli like light, sounds, smell, or touch without enough breaks can lead to autistic burnout. And again, I will link a video for you where we dive a little bit deeper into sensory overload. Then we have the emotional fatigue. Dealing with or even just overthinking social misunderstandings, navigating complex social situations and dynamics, and facing external as well as internalized stigma can all contribute to emotional exhaustion. And then of course there is being overworked or just different life changes. So big life events or prolonged periods of work-related stress without proper rest can cause or intensify autistic burnout. Alright, finally, how to deal with autistic burnout. So most importantly, rest and recover. So taking rest is very important when it comes to any type of burnout. We have a guest host. It's called June. Anyway, where was I? So taking the time to rest is important for recovering any type of burnout. And this might mean taking a break from work, school, or social obligations. So taking time to rest as well as built-in rest into your weeks and your days in general is a very important part in both recovering from autistic burnout as well as preventing it to come back in the future. Then we have sensory regulation. So minimizing the exposure to sensory stimuli that you are especially sensitive to, and also creating a more sensory friendly environment can be really helpful in reducing the symptoms and just give you some much needed respite of all of those sensory stimuli surrounding you throughout the day. This is actually a big reason that I like to keep my main living spaces, and especially my bedroom, quite calm and just relaxing. I really want my home to be a sanctuary where I can relax, wind down, and just where I can get a break from all of the sensory input that's already bombarding me when I move throughout my day. Something else that's actually really important is self-acceptance. So reducing the pressure to mask or to meet neurotypical standards can hugely help to prevent autistic burnout from coming back. This is where you can really try and take some of the pressure off of yourself. So self-acceptance is a huge part of this, but a understanding environment can definitely help here as well. And this is something where the double empathy problem comes into play, which again, I did do an entire video on, so I'll have that linked for you because that is just way too much to go into detail to right now. And then finally, look for support. So seeking support from family, friends, or professionals that are used to working with people with autism. And I would also say specifically if you are a woman, look for people that are used to working with autistic women, because that can look a little bit different from them working with autistic men. There are definitely some differences there. Anyway, just looking for support in general can give you some much needed understanding and can also help you with making some accommodations. And finally, in order to prevent autistic burnout from coming back, I think it is so insanely important to become aware of what building stress looks like for you in your life. Like I already said, a lot of autistic people have a lower awareness of their body and of how stress actually manifests itself in their life, in their body. So just getting to know yourself, getting to know what actually causes stress for you, and how you can recognize stress building up for you. Recognizing those signals can be such a big help in actually preventing autistic burnout from coming back for you. Because now you actually know when it is time to take a step back, when it's time to rest, and you can actually do so before it's too late. And something that's good to keep in mind is that this looks different for everyone. So it's truly a personal journey into self-awareness. And if this is something that's difficult for you to do on your own, there are autism coaches that can help you do this. Or maybe follow along on this channel, where this year I'm actually launching a series all around finding balance and really finding that self-awareness. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you. If so, give it a thumbs up. Maybe leave a comment. I would love to hear your story. And also, if you think it might be helpful for someone you know, please share it with them. It helps out my channel and it might also help them out. So win-win. I thank you so much for watching this video. I wish you a lovely rest of your day and I will see you in my next video. Bye!